Hello, everyone. Welcome to Selected Topics in Injury Prevention 2021 for the Plains to Peaks RETAC EMS Conference. We are happy to be here with you today. First up for presentation will be Laura Kent from AMR.
I have some absolutely phenomenal, hopefully, new news for you guys on the street front. Yellow Dot program. So let me give you a little bit of information about myself. I started in 1983 on the foothills of Mount Rainier as a dispatcher and a brand spanking new EMT. I learned a lot of stuff, came here in 1984 and did many hours of ride-alongs. Finally got hired in 1990 with St. Francis, and then we got bought out by A1 and went back to A1. The next year we got bought out by AMR and have been there. May will be 30 years with AMR. So I am injury prevention specialist by heart, mostly. It's been trial and error learn. But anyway, I would like you guys to not struggle on scenes as much as sometimes we have to. So the Yellow Dot program is an amazing thing to help law enforcement and firefighters, as well as all us EMTs and paramedics on ambulances, get the most critical care to someone at our most critical moments. So Yellow Dot has been proven in over 22 states. And when I did a little bit more research, we couldn't find out if there were statistics that said that we actually made a difference. But it started out basically about 2002, down in the southern states, about Georgia area. They sort of have the most information in on their pages. So it was originally developed for older drivers, since they are at the most vulnerable risk of traffic accidents. So just to give you an idea, in El Paso County alone, we had 6,500 crashes of 65 years and older, and that was in 2019. So 18,000 calls probably throughout that year. 6,500 were actually 65 and older. So that's a pretty large population that is very vulnerable to comorbidities. So this can be life-saving for anyone with medical conditions, especially we have so many with diabetes, epilepsy, heart and lung conditions, CPMS, autism. We have so many kids with autism here. We have 6 centers here in El Paso County. Alzheimer's is becoming more and more critical. If you're driving someone around with all these extra comorbidities, we need to make sure that we are giving the correct treatment. It may not even be a trauma. It could just be a medical problem that we can see that yellow dot, get in that glove box, pull that information out, and give the correct treatment much quicker. Oops, sorry about that. So yeah, I was right. So it allows the ambulance, police, and fire to render more appropriate life-saving medical care. So how this program came to Colorado Springs, Miley with Drive Smart and Karen, they were thinking about this, and they wrote this grant through CDOT. And Miley said, hey, Laura, you're a first responder. How about you help us through this? And I said, okay. You know, I never say no. So we used materials from other states that had already been in place. So, you know, don't reinvent the wheel when you start a program. If somebody already else has done it, they will be able to help you through those rough spots. So you don't have to suffer the consequences that they did, making it all up. So we made this video that you we'll see at the very end. Thank you to CSFD. And we distributed it to all the agencies that we could think of. So ambulance, fire, police departments. We also sent it over to some of the area aging centers, things like that, so that they could let their people know. So far, we've moved on to doctors' offices that actually work with senior citizens. We're moving on to, like, at the library, you can put something up there. We also put it on Springs TV, trying to get this into the general public. But COVID hit 2 days before we were supposed to film, so that put us off for another couple of months. And now we're almost a year behind on everything that we were trying to do. So moving on to places that you can distribute this in a COVID environment is a little bit tough. So that's what we're kind of working through. So the challenges have been getting these little packets distributed. And the only thing that this packet is, and I'll show you in a little bit, but it is the absolute same file of life that they put on their fridge. And then they take a headshot of themselves, connect it to that file of life, and put it in their glove box. How we know they have it is by this little yellow dot on the driver's rear window, no higher than 3.5 inches up. So partnering with agencies and things like that that work with seniors. I'm working on the DMV. We're starting to get to some of those Medicare doctors' offices, churches. Some churches, you know, are predominantly older people. So that's phenomenal to try to get that out there. Sunday, I am being I'm on the ambulance. I'm working as a medic just in case someone has an issue with their shot, has an allergic reaction. And that's going to be mostly seniors. So I'm going to take the yellow dot out there with me. Perfect timing, perfect conditions, and perfect audience, right? So trying to think through how we might be able to get those distributed in safe fashions. I'm also thinking about maybe some sort of drive-up line, like between this time and this time, we can hand you a packet, you just drive through, we give you the packet, we can even help you fill it out if you need to, those kind of things. You just kind of have to think outside the box for us these days. So finding partnerships. So you know those file of lives, they're super expensive. Almost $3 a piece. So it's a big cost that a lot of companies can't afford, but if everybody throws in file of lives into the bucket, and you can populate your community a little bit quicker and easier. Penrose St. Francis threw some in, we threw probably 650 in, St. Francis threw a couple hundred in, Memorial threw a couple hundred in. So we're working all together for the betterment of the community. So other ideas, when you partner with other people, then you have that big group. You can pull from, hey, this idea, that idea, places that other people did not think of would be great distribution areas. So here is the file of life. Obviously, they don't have to put their address or their phone number on there, but their doctor's phone number is phenomenal. And their allergies and their medications are the absolute most important. You put that headshot onto that file of life, put it in your glove box, and there is that yellow dot that you're going to put on the rear windshield of your car. On the driver's side, no more than 3.5 inches from the bottom. This is the little card that I put into the kit. It sort of explains how you're going to go through the process of doing it, the checklist of what it should include, and then you can just toss that or hand it on to the next person who may already have a file of life that they just want to photocopy, add that head shot, and then put that in their glove box as well. But hopefully they have that bright red slipcover will be helpful. So there's that reminder again. It goes on the back window, no higher than 3.5 inches high. And here is our little training video. It's like a minute and it's super fast training. All you have to do is send the video out. They watch the video and then they understand about how that goes together. And so you have everyone trained in one law enforcement office or one fire station. They can all watch it in training. And they're all trained, ready to go. It's going to be so incredible to actually see yellow dots on the street and knowing we know what that means, that our education has actually gotten out there. So here we go with the video. Let's try it.
A yellow dot kit contains a file of life, a headshot of the person, and a yellow dot sticker. The vehicle driver or passenger completes the file of life provided free of cost. The headshot must be included with every file of life and places it in the glove box. The vehicle owner places the 3-inch yellow dot sticker on the outside lower left corner of the rear window, with the top of the sticker no higher than 3.5 inches from the bottom of the window. The Yellow Dot program has been proven in other states. It directs all first responders to the file of life in the glove compartment. The Yellow Dot kits are available for free at American Medical Response.
All right, so I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and then I'll go into my presentation. So my name is Lori Morgan and I have a similar upbringing as Laura described. I became an EMT in 1985 and 1987. I became a paramedic. I mostly worked in Florida on the street, and in 1994, I came to Colorado and have been here ever since. I have the great pleasure of currently working at UC Health Memorial Hospital as the injury prevention specialist. So fantastic job for an old paramedic. I get to basically follow the American College of Surgeons rules for a level 1 trauma center by fighting the mechanism of injury that is the greatest that comes in. And one of those is falls. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 programs today. One is falls and a program to combat falls in older adults. And then the other one will be about trauma survivor networks. So first of all, we have a problem with falls continuing to be the #1 mechanism of injury. It doesn't matter if you're 1 or you're 101. People continue to fall anywhere between 40 to 60, sometimes higher, the overall percentage of mechanism of injury. Of course, we know, as Laura stated in her presentation, the older folks are more vulnerable. So if you get into that car crash, you may be hurt worse because you may be a little more brittle. We just don't heal as quick as we did when we were younger. We found out that traditional classroom-based fall prevention programs are somewhat limited in a pandemic. We can socially distance, we can wear masks, we can clean the surfaces, we can give everyone their own equipment, but not everybody wants to leave their home in a pandemic to do fall prevention program. In fact, we did a survey back at the beginning, well, about almost this time last year, and about 40%, 44% of the people said, we're not really interested in anything in person. We'd prefer a virtual program. The other thing is that rural folks, if I live in Cheyenne Wells, I don't want to drive 2.5 hours to Colorado Springs once a week to take a program. So this is our problem, and we know falls are preventable. So what are we going to do? Well, in comes the Memorial Injury Prevention and Research Institute, or MIPRI, and they're basically focusing on improving lives through collaboration, research, and outreach. And of course, injury prevention being in the title, it's kind of right up my alley. We are going to share our information. We're doing all kinds of research to look at the injuries that affect our community the most. We're not really interested in what's going on in other communities. We just want to see what's going on here. And of course, we want to provide evidence-based injury prevention research. Focus areas include suicide and violence prevention, including intimate partner violence prevention, pediatric and adolescent injury prevention, geriatric fall prevention, which we're really focusing on today, traumatic brain injury, concussion, sports, recreation injury prevention as well. So the MIPRI is really busy doing a lot of work in the 4 focus areas. And today we're just going to talk about the geriatric fall prevention. So the MIPRI partnered with the Next 50 initiative, which is a grant, and this provided us an opportunity to serve underserved and rural folks and vulnerable folks age 50 and older. And we decided we're going to create a virtual hybrid fall prevention program. So we use data from both our trauma registry here at Memorial Hospital and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We were able to identify locations in southern Colorado with increased numbers of falls, and we created partnerships with rural host locations. We based our program on the CDC STEADY algorithm. So if you look at that algorithm, it's stopping elderly accidental death and injury. And the exercise program was created by our expert physical therapist here at Memorial Hospital. And in November, we were actually awarded the grant. So we're really excited, and the real work then began. So we created this marketing / screening card, which again, the 3 key questions are right off of the CDC algorithm. And if you feel unsteady or you have fallen or you worry about falling, then you're at risk and you can join our free virtual fall prevention program. So we decided to call it AIM after a few go-rounds, Aging with Independence and Mobility. So now we call this program AIM. We have 3 options for you. You can join from home, the comfort of your home on your technology. You can join from home on our borrowed iPad if you don't have technology. And the 3rd option is joining at a local host location. So if I'm in Cheyenne Wells and I am not interested in or maybe I don't have technology, or I just don't have connection, then I can go into Cheyenne Wells Fire Department and I can join there. And the local host would be someone from the hospital at Keith Memorial Hospital going out to Cheyenne Wells Fire Department to host at the host location, and people can attend virtually from that host location. The topics include mostly balance and strengthening exercises. We also discuss home safety. We also discuss medication, vision, and the roles that they play in fall risk. Our experts include a doctor of physical therapy who's board certified as a geriatric specialist, a stroke specialist, and a vestibular specialist. We have a neuro-optometrist who has a unique presentation. And then we have a pharmacist that also comes and talks about medications. So our goals, objectives, outcome, and schedule are to increase screenings by 25%. Well, we weren't screening people at all before this, so screening an additional 25% is not going to be a hard goal to reach. We want to reach 100 participants this year in 2021. We hope to reduce falls by 10% and then improve functional outcomes. So the outcomes part are the functional physical therapy standardized tests, which are the timed up and go test and the 5 times sit to stand, which are also embedded into our electronic record. So there are typical scores that tell whether you're at risk, a greater risk, or no risk. And these are administered before and after our 4-week program to measure your strength, your gait, and your balance. So we also want to improve knowledge in the fall related health outcomes in vision, medications, and vitamin D. We are currently in our first program in Teller County is hosting at Pikes Peak Regional Hospital. We have 5 participants attending at the host location at Pikes Peak Regional Hospital. We have 5 participants attending from home. 3 of those are using their own technology, and 2 of those people are using our borrowed technology. We seem to be off to a roll. We're planning to go to Cheyenne County next, and that'll be every Friday morning in March from 10 to 11 a.m. We are looking for a host location currently in Fremont County. We have interested people from Canyon City that want to join. We're also concurrently running virtual programs for El Paso County residents. Our future plans for host locations include Kit Carson Public Health, Lincoln County, and any other Southern Colorado location that may be interested in having us come out. And, or again, anybody can join from anywhere virtually. We are excited that this program is showing a lot of interest, and we're hopeful that we can reach our goals this year. So back to MIPRE, the research database we're using is REDCap, and it allows us to gather all the data, including any of the test scores, the surveys, the home modifications. Basically, any and all information we're gathering is in this database. So if we're successful this year in reaching our goals, we would then apply for a second year of Next 50 Initiative grant funding to replicate the program and expand it even further. In the best case scenario, we'll take our research findings and from this database and publish our findings so that others may replicate this program. This is an example of data-driven innovation to provide a new delivery method of injury prevention programming. It just so happens the pandemic forced us to do this, so we're happy that it seems to be providing a service for folks. So that's it about the AIM program, Aging with Independence and Mobility. And I'd like to talk about a second topic briefly, the Trauma Survivor Network. So the Trauma Survivors Network is something that I never heard about before joining the Level 1 Trauma Center and being a part of the American Trauma Society. So we learned about this and we thought, wow, there's nothing like this in Southern Colorado. Myself, I'm a trauma survivor. I was hit by a car riding my motorcycle in 2014, and there wasn't really anything for people that I was aware of to help people understand, and nobody really understands unless you've been through it yourself. So I felt very passionate about this program and wanted to bring it on here for Southern Colorado. So it's a national and it's a local network to support trauma survivors, their families, and it also includes you, because you all experience trauma, not necessarily personally, but professionally. And the goal is to connect the survivors with other people like them, to provide resources, to help people rebuild their lives after trauma. So, for example, you could have a group of all traumatic brain injury survivors, or you could have a group of all first responders, and we can meet virtually, or, well, one day, hopefully, we can meet in person. That's the goal. So the various programs the Trauma Survivor Network has on a national platform, and our goal is to get these in a local platform as well. Support groups, again, those are customized for need. Post-traumatic stress disorder, amputees, TBIs, children would relate well to other children. So it helps to group people together based on their injuries or their outcomes. The peer visitation program is it works with our volunteer services program. So if you have been there and I have one lady who's had a traumatic brain injury in the 70s, and now she's ready to help other people with similar injuries. So these are peers that can go and visit people virtually or in person that have been there, done that. They know exactly where these people are coming from. The family class is kind of like I can bring a cart up to the ICU where the family is sitting waiting, and we can provide comfort items for them. Maybe a toothbrush or a bottle of water or whatever. We also want to bring information about the Trauma Survivor Network, so they may understand a little better about what's going on. There's a handbook that we're working on. We haven't quite finished that yet, but it's got anatomy drawings. It describes the different roles different people have, what color scrubs the nurse wears versus what color scrubs the physical therapist wears, and that type of information, which can go to family or it can go to patients as well. The recovery assessment is online or paper, and it basically can determine your strengths and identify barriers or challenges that you may have in your recovery. For example, if you're coping by drinking excess amounts of alcohol, then you might be due for a brief intervention, or it might help you to talk to someone about your alcohol use. So that's another program we have, which is Screening, Brief Intervention, and Referral for Treatment, or SBIRT. A lot of the referrals we get are going to come through our social work department, and this kind of ties into that, hey, you need this particular resource. So the Traumapedia is online, and it's kind of like an encyclopedia of trauma, and talks about rehab and just gives a lot of information about things that people may not have known or want to learn about. The next steps is a self-management virtual class that is led by a physician. And it's a 6-week long program where people can sign up and attend and learn how to manage their emotions, manage their self, working towards their new normal. The Care Pages is an interesting resource where if you are, say, the mother of a child who was injured in a car crash and had a terrible traumatic brain injury, everybody wants to know how the daughter's doing. How's the daughter? How's the daughter? Well, in this one place, you can put updates as the parent so that everybody else in the family, friends, everybody can go and look at that. And that helps secure additional time for that parent to actually spend with their child and not have to be talking to 17 different people the same thing all the time over and over again. So that's a nice resource for some folks. So this all started back in May of 2020, where we joined the American Trauma Society. Joining in a pandemic is interesting, but it is doable. And in July, we all had our coordinator training here. We did our onboarding, and we put together an advisory board with stakeholders. In August, I was able to co-facilitate a national post-traumatic stress disorder support group meeting. Actually did 2 of those in August. So that was helpful for me to get that experience. And then in the fall of 2020, we also started our handbook, started telling our staff what we're doing. We have a referral stream now in Epic. Epic is our electronic charting system. So internally, a social worker could put in an order for the Trauma Survivor Network coordinator to go and visit a patient, or externally, Aunt Bertha, which is a social care network. People can just find it on their own from outside and then connect with us here at Memorial Hospital Central. We created some posters and brochures, and we just got our actual brochure going to FedEx. So we'll have those to hand out to folks within another week or so, I think. This winter, we got our first referrals. We have our peers identified. We have mass mailings going out from our trauma database. So we had identified how injured the person was based on injury severity score, or ISS. And if they were a full or a limited trauma. We have all of 2020, we're doing mass mailings. And our goal is to invite people to join us for National Trauma Survivors Day. We're going to do, at this point, we're planning an outdoor gathering, and we're welcoming everyone to join us. We'll have more details on that as we get a little closer to May. But outdoors, we can socially distance and hopefully stay safe. And so that's our plan. We're also going to pop a virtual option in there, because if you were visiting us from New Mexico and you're now back in New Mexico, you're probably not going to want to drive to Colorado Springs to join a gathering. So virtual option will be out there as well. So on closure now, I'd like to tell you, if you want more information, you can call me. My desk line is listed here, or you can email injuryprevention@uchealth.org. And then for the Trauma Survivor Network, it's still the same number, or you can email personally to Lori.Morgan2, I'm number 2, at uchealth.org. Hi, everyone. This is Kevin. He's going to present to you on the party program. And Kevin, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Lori. Hi, welcome. My name's Kevin Sherman. I am with UC Health Trauma Services. I am the program coordinator for the party program covering Metro Denver as well as Southern Colorado. Cam Gentry is the program coordinator who covers Northern Colorado. So basically, for those of you folks who are from Longmont North, Cam will be your reach out person for this. So anyway, what am I here to talk about? Party program. This is PARTY is an acronym, which is short for Prevent Alcohol and Risk-Related Trauma in Youth. What we are is an outreach program that teaches teens the dangers of impaired driving, distracted driving, and other destructive decisions. And really what we'd like to talk to you about is, we spend a lot of time training on how do we treat that big call? How do we manage that major trauma patient, which you guys do a great job at, and your work is very valuable. But how much work do we put into training the public to not need our services, or training the public to avoid becoming that trauma patient or that major mechanism patient? And this program is a great opportunity to reach out into the schools as well as other youth groups to teach these teens some different decision-making strategies, as well as the what and the why behind trauma resuscitation and life as a trauma survivor, and what are real-time repercussions of such decisions being made. So without further ado, let's dive right in. As far as who we are, the party program is a worldwide program. It started in Canada, is now huge in Australia, as well as numerous parts of the US. We started originally in Colorado, in Aurora, Colorado. We've been doing this for well over a decade, bringing students in from various areas of the city, and running this program that I'll explain in just a minute, and we've educated thousands of students over the dangers of impaired and distracted driving and destructive decisions. We use several different disciplines of instructor and educator as well. This isn't just teachers, this is healthcare providers, this is paramedics, and this is law enforcement providers. In some programs, the coroner's office is involved, as well as social workers, as well as survivors who have that firsthand experience of being the patient, to give these students a real world understanding of what trauma resuscitation is, as well from everything from a patient's perspective to providers, to law enforcement, to family members, and what are the real outcomes of decisions being made. So that being said, like I said, as first responders, one of the most powerful opportunities we have to serve our communities is educating our youth of decision-making strategies to avoid requiring our response and skill set. I'm not saying your skill set is bad. I think the skill set that is provided pre-hospital is paramount. That's proven. The numbers are there. We're doing great work with these patients, but let's lessen the patient load, and let's educate the public to not become a patient. After all, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure when you think about it. So we know your audience. That being said, we've been working with teens for a long time. Like I said, over a decade, we've been doing this program with a lot of success in very different school systems and different demographics of students. Um, when we think about it, first first bullet point, you know, today's teens change as times do. I want you to think about this and look at your department. I want you to think about your youngest member of your department, you, and the oldest member of your department, and then think about what life was like as a teenager for all three of you. That's going to be three very different stories because they were three very different times with so many variables, being it what was the political status of the time, to what were the hot topics, to as well technological advancement as well. Um, so there there are several big changes. There's no one size fits all because as times change, students change because their world changes. So we keep very in tune with that as far as what are students dealing with, and what are the hot topics that they're dealing with, both as a student as well as what's the latest medical procedures we can offer and what clinical advice can we give, and we give the latest and greatest with that as well, with from firsthand from the people who either provide or have received such services. Their worldview is different. Learning strategies are different because teaching strategies are different. I've said a long time, the biggest constant thing in the world is change, and we have changed so much over those times. So when you look at those three people from your department, youngest, oldest, and yourself, there's going to be three very different answers as to what life was like as a teen. We spend a lot of research in studying teens to be able to more effectively reach out to teens and more effectively educate teens. So that's great. One of the things we've learned working with teens is shock value education is ineffective. It was effective once upon a time, but again, as times have changed, as technologies changed, as exposure to different ideas and different media has changed over the years, our teenagers have changed too. And so now all of a sudden this shock value, it doesn't work. They're not shocked. And a lot of teens, they don't want that. What they want is an understanding of why. They want the understanding of how does this work? How does my decision change this outcome potentially? Or what are the dynamics behind how this concept came about? So therefore, we're not a scared straight program. We're not going to just show a bunch of gory pictures. Matter of fact, we don't have any in the program. And the reason why is because it's proven ineffective through research that students don't learn from it. Another thing we also keep in mind is that these are high school students. These are not paramedic students, EMT students. They're not nursing students. They're not they're not residents. These are high school students with a wealth of interests that are not medical. So therefore, again, we look at why behind the concept of the decision as opposed to shock value education and don't do this because I said so. That being said, also, let's talk about the program and let's talk about what can we offer you and what can we offer your community where you are located. We have three different versions of the party program. First of all is the in-person program we offer in the hospital. This is an all-day program we have not been doing recently because of COVID and because of social distancing. However, it's good to know what have we been doing as well as what can we offer. The in-person program is an all-day program that brings students to the hospital where they receive They start with learning about anatomy, physiology, kinetics of trauma, breaking down decision-making skills, as well as the ripple effect of the decisions they make. Following that, they typically go out into the ambulance bay where we involve the paramedics and we start talking about setting the scene of where did the trauma happen, what happens on scene pre-hospital. So they get that firsthand view of what's a backboard, what kind of obstacles do paramedics deal with on the streets, not just in resuscitating the trauma patient, but also traffic, distracted drivers because of the crash scene, YouTubers trying to film the crash scene, creating secondary crashes, all these other variables that we bring in that are real world variables in today's life. After that, we bring them to the trauma bay and we talk about not just trauma resuscitation, stabilization for sending off to CT, but we also talk about how many resources are necessary? What creates a trauma team? You know, the fact that it's not just doctors and nurses. We talk about what does the radiologist do? What does the pharmacist do? What do the interns do? Security, spiritual care, chaplains and whatnot. Mental health providers that are involved. We show the full gamut of all of the resources that come together to treat this one patient and how this ripple effect really does grow with the need coming from simple decision making. After that, we enter into critical care. We typically bring the students into the burn ICU or the STICU, depending on which facility we're in, and we talk about what happens in critical care stage, what happens long-term with these patients as they begin that long road of rebuilding and recovery, and what kind of victories happen as well as what kind of challenges happen. We also again talk about career-wise, you know, there are so many other disciplines other than just doctors and nurses that are involved in the patient's care, and how does the whole team come together to provide the best possible outcome for the patient. After that, we go back to the classroom and we take a break from the providers and we talk to survivors, and we hear the survivor story of what happened. How did my decision making bring me to where the survivor is at, and what their road to recovery was? And it gives the students a chance to in person ask questions of what brought to this, as well as what did they experience, or what are they currently experiencing when it comes to not just the immediate stabilization, but the long-term care and the lifelong after effects, as well as how has this affected my family, my loved ones, my social life, my career life, and all the other ripples that can come from decision-making aftermath. After that, we do sorry. After that, typically lunch is provided and we then go to stations. We have a menu of interactive simulation stations we use with the program that simulates several different things that are affecting our youth and trauma in youth today. We simulate the power of distraction while multitasking or driving. We simulate what is life with a brain injury or a high spinal cord injury. We have real world I'm going to take the simulation stations over again. Bear with me. So after lunch, we bring our students to simulation stations. These stations are typically a rotation of different opportunities to learn about different aspects of being the trauma patient, such as we talk about distraction while trying to multitask, and the multitasking being operating a vehicle. We talk about life with a brain injury or life with a high spinal cord injury. We also talk about different scenarios that happen in real world situations. A lot of these scenarios have actually come to us from teachers who work with these teens and understand their day-to-day life and what types of decisions they may face, so we can work on decision-making strategies to help these students avoid becoming that trauma patient, as well as other options for simulation stations too. After the simulation stations, then State Patrol or law enforcement comes in and gives a breakdown of the likelihood of different decisions and their likelihood of being involved in a crash or in a fatal car crash. And we break down what are the mechanics behind this decision and leading to different outcomes, and as well as the likelihood of these decisions leading to such outcomes. After that, it's typically followed by a debrief, and then the students are sent back to their home schools after this full day program. It's been proven very effective. The students have actually several comments from students saying how much they've enjoyed or how much they've learned from this program. And I've actually run into students out in the community who've recognized me and told me how this program has changed their habits in a positive way. So it's a very impactful program. The second version of the program is the On the Road program. If you can't come to us, we will pack up and come to you. And so typically what this program has, even though we don't have the luxury of bringing them to the ICU or to the trauma bay, what we can do is we offer those talks. We bring providers as well as law enforcement as well as survivors to your school to present to your students, and we talk about kinetics of trauma. We talk about decision making and the strategies behind decision making, as well as the real world effects of decision making strategies. We talk about anatomy. We talk about the breakdown of a car crash. We have the survivors speak. And this is an open forum as well, where students have the opportunity to ask questions and to be involved in learning this and getting those questions answered by somebody who has that firsthand experience. We also do bring the simulation stations to your school as well, to give them that hands-on experience. So that way we can reach out to those visual tactile learners as well as auditory learners, and try to be able to reach out to as many students as possible in the most effective variety of ways possible. The third program is our newest program I'm very excited to talk to you about, and this is our virtual party program. This program started because of social distancing, and what can we do since we can't bring students into the hospital? Well, we can do what the schools are doing and provide virtual education. We have built a 5-module program that can be facilitated either by UC Health staff or by the teacher to come into your classroom or to the homes of those remote students to bring this program and this information about trauma prevention, and the real world lessons of the party program. This is a very flexible program, like I said, in 5 different modules that can either be done all at once in a day or can be broken up into different portions to nicely fit easily into any teaching module and schedule that you may be doing. So our goal with the virtual program is to be able to reach out into the rural communities with this as well, since now the logistics of bringing either us to you or you to us is essentially taken out with the virtual program, as well as all of the cost and whatnot of busing students and whatnot. So this is a very budget-friendly program that can work very well in providing this life-saving information to your students. Speaking of budgets, I also want to mention this program is at no cost to you. This is at no cost to the students. This is at no cost to the school. So if you're a teacher, or if you're involved in PTA, or if you're however we can get into your school, please bring this up to your providers, to your educators in your communities out there. This is at no cost to you. We don't want your money. We want your students, and we want to keep your students out of the hospital and out of the trauma base. So that being said, I thank you for your time and I thank you for your attention, and I hope to be working with you soon in bringing a party program to your schools and to your communities. We work with schools, we work with church groups, we'll work with any group of teens. Teens are what we're after, and teens are who we want to educate in this information that, quite frankly, even the teachers have said, hey, this is good information for even me to know. So that being said, on my screen, you can see my email address as well as Cam's email address. Again, Cam is the Northern Coordinator. So for those of you basically from Longmont North, she would be the person to reach out to. And from south of Longmont all the way to the New Mexico line, please reach out to me as well. Or reach out to either one of us, we'll get you in the right place. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you.
That was awesome, Kevin. We want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, everyone, for watching Selected Topics in Injury Prevention. We just want to review for you that Laura Kent from AMR shared the Yellow Dot program. I shared the Aging with Independence and Mobility program, as well as the Trauma Survivor Network. And Kevin just presented to you on the party program, Prevent Alcohol and Risk-Related Trauma in Youth. We're hopeful that we can prevent trauma moving forward, whichever way we can do that. And we thank you so much for your time. All right, take care, everyone.